want to respond to one of my Patreons that asked a great question. One that I've heard and see both with clients and with athletes is, what if you lose your motivation to train? What if you reach the point where you just don't want to go to the gym anymore, and you've been pushing hard? And so, a very good question. I thought I'd just answer this question to that person directly, but also you may find you're in the same place. Number one is look at your external stresses. Okay, I've seen this in clients many times. They push really, really hard, and they're going through a personal challenge, or they're trying to cut, or they're cut weight, or they're trying to. There's just you cannot underestimate the external. Okay, the external. If you've been going through a rough time for a while, or something that at work isn't getting resolved, then you cannot say that isn't going to affect your training and your recovery and your motivation. So be careful. Now, the gym can be a sanctuary. It can be a place to go and escape from those things at times. I've done my best thinking in the weight room in the gym. But if you're finding that you're so busy that the gym isn't stretching you, then it may be time to evaluate. Number two, look at your volume. You can't, even if you follow a deload cycle, if you go 3 weeks and one off, or however you're doing, it doesn't mean that fatigue isn't still accumulating. And so that is where doing a longer deload might be helpful. All right, and it's going to feed in my next point here in a second. A longer deload might be helpful. Instead of 1 week, 2 weeks. Okay, in that deload, do some variety training. So do something else. Do some circuit training. Do some if you're part of or close to something that's like a CrossFit box or a program do something like that. Do some general preparatory work. Do something that is not what you've been doing. Still stay connected with the barbell or dumbbells perhaps, but don't do, if you've been doing the powerlifting program forever, and then you need to do something else. Do some body weights stuff for a week. I say stay connected with the barbell, but if it's severe enough that you're really like, I'm tired of the barbell, then just go spend some time away from it. Right? Go on vacation. It's kind of like your job. Hopefully you get a vacation every once in a while. Okay? You just got to get away from it and be refreshed and get excited about training again. And sometimes that can be more than 1 week. Sometimes it needs to be 2. If you look at Olympic athletes, many times they'll take months and months and months off after the Olympics. Okay? Look at your professional athletes. They'll go to, and we can't do this, but they fly to Hawaii for a month or whatever. Right? You just need to get away from that and let your body and your mind rest and become rejuvenated. So that's probably the easiest thing. It doesn't mean you have to just stop lifting or stop. For example, when I have weightlifters that do a meet, I used to kick them out of the weight room, but it was hard because they get really excited and they might go do dumb things at another gym. So have them come in and but the rules were don't max out, have fun. When you get tired of lifting, go. If you want to max out on your bench press within reason, go for it. Just do things that you haven't been doing and just have a good time with it. If you're done in 30 minutes, great. If you miss a day, don't worry about it. It was just real flexible. And for some athletes, that was maybe even longer for a couple weeks, depending on how hard the cycle was going up to that competition. I realize we're talking about daily training here, but that may be needed. That may be the same deal. If you've been training hard and hitting your maximum recovery volume for a long period of time, one deload is not going to be enough. Make sure. So this is my next point. What do we want? 3? I don't know. I lose focus. Exercise variety. I'm a huge fan of exercise variety. I know you can rotate exercises too quickly. For newbies, it might be, but I even tend to rotate isolation exercises in particular fairly frequently, even with newbies, like within one cycle. It's like, well, they didn't get a chance to learn how to do it. True, but they're learning how to do all these different exercises, and we'll come back to them at some point. So somebody could argue, well, you're not building enough, comfort with them to build strength, and I agree with you. Okay, this is just my philosophy, but certainly for those that have been training for long periods of time, working, how many ways can you do a lateral raise? And there's a difference in between. There's a reason for it. It's not just random stuff. Let's just do random things. But in that randomness, right, doing a standing DB lateral raise, doing a seated incline, doing a sideways DB lateral raise, doing a teller raise, doing a butterfly raise, doing a lean to do it, right? These are exercise, grabbing the handle in the back instead of versus the front, and right, there's different activations that are certainly happening, but it also is a mental engagement. I can't overstate this, and I've said this a few times. Mental engagement with the program has to be there, and so some of these sets and rep schemes that have neurological underpinnings, like you say, like a contrast set, like I've mentioned many times, and I've mentioned this example many, many times, and waves and things like that. Yes, there's this neurological component, but there's also a psychological component of not just doing 8 sets flat of 10. Okay, some people can do that. It's kind of like those that really rock out a diet and meal prepping, and they can eat the same thing over and over and over and over again. I'm not one of those guys myself. There's some meals I can do that with, like my breakfast is pretty much the same all the time. But other meals I want variety, man. I can't eat the same thing over and over and over again. Okay, now I'm probably towards more of that other side, but I still need some variety. Other side being I can do the same thing over and over again. My training is pretty flat, and I'm okay with it. Like I'm just been in permanent maintenance for a while anyway, just for right now, and so I'm okay with it. But if you're trying to push, especially if you're trying to push, then you're going to need some variety. If you're one that needs some variety in your diet, then you need variety in your diet. Like find alternatives. Okay, so that might require some research. Even the compound lifts can be done differently. You can do an RDL 50 different ways. You can do a deadlift in a couple different ways. You can obviously modulate percentages of volume, but there's a couple studies off the top of my head. I can't remember the actual mechanics of the study, but they were on exercise variety and compared to load and volume. I don't want to overstate this. That exercise variety though was the variable that determined success over time more than those training studies. Now, again, I'm paraphrasing. maybe I'll go find those studies and do a journal club on them. But they're really interesting. It reinforced kind of my bias that exercise variety is critical. And so I'm big into that. I think it's very, very important. That can help break the monotony is what I'm getting at. Reorder your training. So here's another one. So if bench day is always Tuesday, make bench day Monday. Right? Again, well, that's not a big difference. Sure it is. It changed your mentality going into Monday. Oh, it's not squat day again. It's bench day. Okay? Now, obviously there's a sequence that makes sense for things like powerlifting and stuff like that, but you may need some variety in that, in the ordering of the exercise, even if you just did it for a cycle. Okay? Just to give yourself different stimulus. All right? So hopefully that's helpful. Sometimes complete rest is needed. I mentioned body weight circuits, doing that for a couple cycles. Even, if you really felt like you needed that much time, you could do that for 2 cycles. Would you lose some mass, lose some strength? Yes. But if you're going to become disengaged with the program and stop lifting for even longer because you're getting burnt out, then it'd be better to take a step back and do something like that. Okay? If you're going on a vacation for a week, don't lift. Don't try to find a place to lift. Just relax. Enjoy the vacation. Don't make the training become problematic. Now, if you want to go to the gym, throw some dumbbells around because you feel good and it helps you wake up in the morning, and great, go do it. But if it's like, man, I got to get my training in today, hit my volume totals, and just take a week off. Okay. Most of the folks I work with are highly driven people, and that's why they've been successful. But there has to be a balance there, and that's the same with training. There has to be a balance, or you will get into a place where you get stale, and you can reach overreaching, but more than likely you just get tired of going to the gym. Okay. Some small pointers to finish here. 4-day, go to a 3-day. 5-day, go to a 4-day. 6-day, go to a 3-day. And be okay with it. Chop half your program off. So I'm only doing the compound lifts. I'm not going to do all these accessory and isolation work. I had 5 exercises. I'm only doing 2. Right? Do that for a cycle. Find ways to rejuvenate. Do a high rep cycle. I work this in. RP does this too. I think resensitization, I think it's called. But I'll do 3x20s. That's a pretty rough cycle, but it's more cardiovascular based, work capacity based. But for 3x20, all dumbbell work, no barbells. If you've been doing barbells, right, or all machines, or right, just make some sort of rule just for the cycle, just to be kind of fun about it. No, I'm not going to touch a barbell for a cycle, right? Whatever it is, okay, and enjoy that cycle. Push in a different way. Push your work capacity that week, or that cycle. Excuse me. It could be 1 week, but it likely is. So I hope that helps. I think the magic words are rest and variety. Rest and variety, rest and variety. You have to work those in. It's difficult. Even if somebody you see that's doing a show or something like that, or a competition, there is a periodization. There's a cycle to that. And part of that cycle is active recovery, active rest, things like that are needed. And a typical athlete cycle, again, like I mentioned this before, they're going to, a professional athlete might fly to Hawaii for a month. An athlete that was on a quadrennial cycle had some breaks in between, but after the Olympic Games is over, they may disappear for 2 years, right, before resurfacing and starting training again, just because of the amount of accumulated volume and stress, psychological stress that was occurred. And so when you're taking the external world and then, you know, your world you live in, your work stress, family stress, all those things. And remember, most athletes don't have that. That's why they can work even harder. You've got to keep that in perspective. But you put that together with, I'm doing the same thing over and over again, and I'm always pushing, then you're going to get burnt out. It may not be too close. An injury might not be too close behind as well. All right, hopefully that's helpful. If not, the person that asked this question, please shoot me an email and another message through Patreon, and I'd be happy to respond. And that goes for anybody. If you're interested in joining my Patreon page, you have access to me if you level at the correct level. And I'm cheap, man. I'm really cheap knowledge, right? Cheap knowledge. So check out my Patreon page if you haven't already, and I hope you'll find the content there valuable. I'm starting to talk about programming and how I write programs. We're going to talk about a variety of things, and it's driven by you, Patreon. If you join as a Patreon, tell me what you'd like to hear more about, and I'll make some videos on it just for Patreons. And I'll, of course, keep uploading videos here on YouTube as well.